Let's just get right to it with a pretty serious question. Do you have any idea how much of your estate can just vanish? It's a bit of an uncomfortable thought, for sure, but a huge chunk of it can get eaten up by taxes, all sorts of fees, and legal delays before your family ever sees a cent. And that's the exact problem we're going to tackle today.
So first up, let's pull back the curtain on what I like to call your estate's hidden hurdles. Think of the standard process for settling an estate as a kind of financial gauntlet. Your wealth has to run through this series of obstacles, and honestly, it risks getting smaller and smaller with every single step.
Now, when most people hear estate planning, their mind immediately goes to having a will. But a will? That's just one piece of the puzzle. Real estate planning is a complete roadmap. It's a strategy designed to shield your family, preserve your wealth, slash that tax bill, and make absolutely certain your final wishes are followed to the letter. It's the master plan that makes everything work together.
Okay, so here's what that gauntlet actually looks like in practice. The moment you pass away, pretty much all of your assets get frozen. Then the government swoops in to calculate all the capital gains taxes you owe. That's the tax on the growth of things like your cottage or your investments. After that, the formal court process called probate begins, which is just the legal validation of your will. And this whole process can be long, it can be expensive, and it's public, which unfortunately is often what sparks conflict within the family. So the big question is, how do you get through this gauntlet and keep your wealth intact? Well, that brings us to Section 2. We're going to look at life insurance, not just as some basic safety net, but as an incredibly powerful strategic tool that can solve a lot of these problems.
This is where it gets really powerful. Think of life insurance as having 3 superpowers in your estate plan. First, and this is a big one, the payout your family gets is completely tax-free. Second, it gives them immediate cash, what we call liquidity, at the exact moment when all your other assets are frozen solid. And third, it completely bypasses that whole probate system. No courts, no fees, no delays.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the unbelievable difference in timing. That probate process can drag on for 18 months on average. And if things get complicated, it can stretch out for a decade or even longer. Now compare that to a life insurance payout. That usually shows up in about 2 weeks. When your family needs money right away for bills or taxes, that speed is absolutely everything.
Life insurance also plays another crucial role, keeping things fair in the family. Just imagine, say one of your kids is going to inherit the family business, but your other child is involved in it. How do you make that equal? Well, a life insurance policy can provide a cash payout to the other child that's equal in value. It's a simple way to prevent the kind of resentment that can really tear families apart.
Okay, for all you business owners out there, you're going to want to listen to this next section. It is a total game changer. Let's talk about what I call the corporate power-up, holding your life insurance inside your corporation to unlock some truly massive advantages.
So the magic really starts with how the policy is paid for. When your corporation owns the policy, the premiums are paid with its after-tax dollars. And the key here is that corporate tax rates are usually way lower than personal income tax rates. What that means is more of your money is actually going towards the policy itself instead of to the tax man, making it so much more efficient right from day one.
And here's where it gets even better. Think of this as a tax-free pipeline. When you pass away, your corporation gets the death benefit and it's tax-free. That money then gets credited to this special account called the Capital Dividend Account, or CDA. From that account, it can be paid out directly to your heirs, who are now the shareholders, as a completely tax-free dividend.
So why does this CDA pipeline matter so much? Well, this number really says it all. If you tried to get that same wealth out of your corporation into your family without this strategy, you could face a tax hit of around 40%. The CDA pipeline lets that wealth just flow right through, completely untouched by taxes. It's huge.
All right, enough theory. Let's make this real. Let's put the plan to work and look at a few real-world scenarios where these strategies make an absolutely massive difference for families and their businesses.
First up, saving the family cottage. This is a classic Canadian problem. When you pass it on, it can trigger a huge capital gains tax bill. And if your kids don't have the cash on hand to pay it, they might be forced to sell. But a life insurance payout provides that exact cash, covering the tax bill and making sure the cottage stays in the family for generations.
Next, protecting your business. If you've got partners, a life insurance policy is the perfect way to fund what's called a buy-sell agreement. This gives the surviving partners the cash they need to buy out the deceased partner's shares from their family. It ensures a really smooth transition and protects the company's future.
And what about blended families? Man, things can get complicated fast, right? Well, life insurance offers incredible clarity here. By naming specific people as beneficiaries on the policy, you can make sure kids from different relationships are taken care of exactly how you want, completely sidestepping any confusion or conflict with what's in the will.
Okay, to wrap all this up, let's look at some of the most common and really costly mistakes people make. Because knowing what the pitfalls are is the very first step to making sure you avoid them in your own plan.
So let's run through the top 4 estate traps. The first one seems obvious, but it happens all the time. Having no will or having one that's totally out of date. Second, forgetting to name specific beneficiaries on things like your RRSP or your life insurance, which sends that money straight into the probate mess. Third, having no plan for liquidity, no cash available to pay that final massive tax bill. And finally, and maybe the most damaging one of all, failing to just talk about the plan with your family, which almost guarantees confusion and conflict later on.
So if you take away one thing from all this, let it be this. Estate planning isn't just some legal task you check off a list. It's the active process of making sure the legacy you spent your life building is passed on efficiently, with the least amount of tax possible, and, most importantly, exactly the way you wanted. It's really about control and purpose.
And that just leaves us with one final question for you to really think about. After everything you've worked for, is your legacy actually protected by a deliberate, thoughtful plan? Or is its future just being left completely to chance?